Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Trident Royalties PLC AGM proceedings. Throughout this presentation, attendees will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and can be submitted at any time via the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. Simply type your question and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question received during the meeting itself. However, the company review all questions submitted today and publish responses where it's appropriate to do so. These will be available via Investor Meet Company dashboard, and you'll be notified once these are ready for your review. I'd also like to remind you that this presentation is being recorded. I'd now like to hand you over to James Kelly, Non-Executive Chairman of Trident Royalties PLC. Good afternoon, James.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm James Kelly, Chairman of Trident Royalties PLC, and it is my pleasure to welcome you and those listening to the AGM. It is now 2 p.m, the time appointed for the meeting. Joining us through the Investor Meet Company platform are Adam Davidson, our CEO, and Martin Page, our Chief Financial Officer. Before we start the formal business of the meeting, I'd like to extend my thanks to those shareholders who are joining us at the AGM. I'm sorry that the ongoing pandemic and associated restrictions mean we are unable to hold an AGM which everyone can attend in person. It is our intention to return to normal next year, and I look forward to seeing as many shareholders as possible in person then. As I take you through a brief preamble and slide, I'm just going to turn my camera off, so that I can run through the slide. I think we can all agree that the last year has been truly extraordinary. The COVID pandemic has brought periods of extreme challenge, and for many of us, it has also brought loss and hardship. At times, it has felt like Groundhog Day as the weeks and months have dragged on in a seemingly endless manner. However, when I reflect on the year Trident has had, it passed in what feels like the blink of an eye and was punctuated with regular achievements and success. When we embarked on our strategy of building a growth-focused, diversified mining, royalty and streaming company, we were convinced of the merits of the strategy. The advantages of the royalty model for both investors and the underlying mining company were clear. Indeed, the premium market valuations of the North American precious royalty companies provided one of the clearest indicators of this. What was also clear to us was that there was a space in the market for a new royalty company, albeit not one focused on precious metals. Instead, one focused on building a diversified portfolio of assets that broadly mirror the global mining industry. We could see that the preoccupation of most royalty companies on the precious metals, larger transactions and the Americas left large swathes of assets and geographies untouched, thereby providing us with a fertile environment in which to deliver our strategy. In the 12 short months since our AIM admission, Adam and his team have worked tirelessly to deliver the critical mass and operating cash flow needed to underpin a growing royalty company. We have successfully executed 7 transactions, moving Trident from a solitary royalty to a portfolio of 12 royalties covering 4 commodities in 4 countries, and we've seen our share price double in the process. Our market capitalization has grown from $5 million to approximately $100 million, a level that makes Trident increasingly relevant for large institutional investors, an important and exciting progression for the company. Executing this number of transactions so quickly and seeing a diversified portfolio of royalties starting to take shape is undoubtedly pleasing, as it confirms that our belief in the strategy and the opportunity was well founded. Indeed, as I look across our portfolio, our pipeline of potential transactions, I have more conviction than ever in our strategy. We have always benefited from a full pipeline of opportunities, but in recent months, the pipeline has evolved again, I suspect in part due to the company's continued progress and growth. The size, quality and breadth of the opportunities in front of us augurs well as we seek to add further cash flow, commodities and geographies to our portfolio. This, together with the current supportive commodity price environment, makes me confident that Trident will continue to enjoy a similar trajectory of growth that we saw over the last year. None of this would have been possible without the support we have received from our shareholders. We have been extremely fortunate to have a loyal group of shareholders, many of whom have supported us since our inception, and some of whom have joined us more recently. I would like to extend my gratitude to all our shareholders, both new and old, for embarking on this journey with us. This year promises to be another very exciting year for Trident, and we look forward to reporting our progress across the coming months. Turning now to the main business of this year's AGM. We have sought to follow current best practice within the limits of the company's constitution and technical practicalities to allow shareholders to both ask questions of the board and to join proceedings online. We held a webinar on the 26th of May in order to provide shareholders with an update on the group's activities and also to enable shareholders to submit questions in writing prior to this meeting. Key questions were answered during the webinar, and the answers have been posted on the Investor Meet company platform. Shareholders have access to this AGM via the Investor Meet company platform, and again will be able to submit questions there during the meeting. We will then endeavour to address at the end of the meeting any questions that are received through the Q&A function. This annual general meeting has been called for the purpose of passing the resolutions set out in the notice of meeting. Resolutions 1 to 5 will be proposed as ordinary resolutions, and resolutions 6 and 7 will be proposed as special resolutions. With the consent of the meeting, I have taken the notice of meeting as read. As usual, I direct that voting on all the resolutions will be by poll. Shareholders cannot vote through the Investor Meet company platform, and all votes will be cast by proxy. I will complete poll cards for my own shares and for any shares in respect of which I have been appointed proxy. These poll cards will be totalled at the end of the meeting and the results announced and published on our website as soon as possible. In the meantime, I will provide a breakdown of the proxy votes received after introducing each resolution. Item 1. Resolution 1 proposes that the audited accounts and financial statements of the company for the period ended the 31st of December 2020, together with the director's report and auditor's report thereon, be received. The proxies received on resolution were for 63,024,987, against 4,117,647, withheld 3,430,529. Item 2. Resolution 2 proposes that PKF Littlejohn LLP be reappointed as auditor of the company to hold office from the conclusion of the meeting to the conclusion of the next meeting at which the accounts are to be laid. Proxies received on resolution 2 were for 70,536,735, against 7,928, withheld 28,500. Item 3. Resolution 3 proposes that the Audit Committee be authorised to agree the auditor's remuneration. Proxies received on resolution 3 were as follows: for 70,536,735, against 9,428, withheld 27,000. Item 4. Resolution 4 proposes to elect Helen Payne as a director of the company. Proxies received on resolution 4 were as follows: for 63,023,487, against 4,119,147, withheld 3,430,529. Item 5. Resolution 5 proposes that the directors be granted authority to allot up to 100 million shares in the company. This authority shall expire at the conclusion of the next annual general meeting of the company, or if earlier, at the close of business on the 8th of September 2022. Proxies received on resolution 5 were as follows: for 66,406,057, against 4,139,147, and withheld 27,959. Item 6. Resolution 6 proposes that, subject to certain limitations, the directors be granted authority to allot up to 100 million ordinary shares outside the preemption rights in the Companies Act. This authority shall expire at the conclusion of the next annual general meeting of the company, or, if earlier, at the close of business on the 8th of September 2022. Proxies received on resolution 6 were as follows: for 66,403,907, against 4,141,297, and withheld 27,959. Item 7. Resolution 7 proposes that the company be permitted to purchase up to 17,821,047 of its own shares, ordinary shares, at or between the minimum and maximum prices specified in this resolution. This authority shall expire at the conclusion of the next annual general meeting of the company, or, if earlier, at the close of business on the 8th of September 2022. Proxies received on Resolution 7 were as follows. For 70,504,818, against 41,345, and withheld 27,000. That concludes the business of the resolutions for this AGM.
Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed, James. I'd like to remind attendees that your feedback is important to the company, and immediately after the presentation has ended, you'll be redirected for the opportunity to provide your feedback in order that the company can better understand your views and expectations. James, if I may just hand back to you, and if there are any questions that you've seen come through that are appropriate to respond to, if I could ask you just to read out the question, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, we do have a couple of questions that have come through. The first question is from, I think it's TSK. Great company and work. Could you please elaborate on the current royalty pipeline and which commodities have your focus? So as I said in my introduction, we've always benefited from a deep and full pipeline, both when we first started out and as we've evolved through the year and started to create the critical mass and build out a broader company. The pipeline has been evolving. I would characterize it as being spread across all commodities, and importantly across all stages of assets. And I think it's fair to say that we are focusing on cash flowing assets, and we'll always have the guiding light of bringing our portfolio back to being something that broadly replicates the global mining industry. Obviously, we can't say too much about specific transactions, but there is a depth there that is very encouraging as we look ahead. But I will also pass this over to Adam, because I know that he is obviously more up to speed with the day-to-day status of the pipeline.
Sure. Yeah, nothing huge to add there. I suppose really it's as James mentioned, I think that the pipeline is getting fuller as we grow. But part of that's down to the cycle. Obviously, commodities are heating up, and therefore miners are looking for financing. So we see a lot of opportunity being generated from that. But in addition to that, I think just as Trident's grown in size and scale, we're starting to get a bit of that market recognition, and that's resulted in both existing royalties as well as parties looking for financing to come knock on our door. So yeah, the pipeline is in a good position. In terms of particular commodities that we're focusing on, as James mentioned, the intent here is we're still very much in a growth phase, so we want to build out the diversification and the critical mass of the portfolio. So we're not overly obsessing about particular commodities at the moment. That said, I wouldn't necessarily characterize it as an area of focus. Perhaps more an area of particular interest is where base metals overlap with battery metals. So, the likes of copper and nickel that feed into both those thematics. I suppose that's a particular area that we'd like to focus on. That said, we certainly wouldn't turn away a good bulk commodity or precious metals transaction, because the prerogative is to build out the portfolio. I think very little's changed in that front. That's what we've been doing, and that's what we intend to continue to do.
Thanks, Adam. Okay, so moving on to the next question, which comes from OzW. Please provide details of bonuses or other compensation paid during the year, how are these calculated, and are they target driven? So we have received this question, and I think there were a couple of unanswered questions from the last the webinar. So I'll sort of give an answer that hopefully covers both your question, Oz, and also the other ones. So look, the details of the remuneration packages and the amounts can be found in our annual report in the remuneration report section. The remuneration committee regularly undertakes a full review of all of the executive remuneration and for the broader board. And we've received independent advice on the structure of the remuneration packages to ensure that they are in line with UK listed companies of a similar size. The remuneration packages we put in place for the executive team have been structured so that they have multiple purposes to them, but principally we're looking to make sure that we can attract, incentivize and retain top talent to the company. The packages are intended to provide a mixture of both short-term and long-term incentives, and also equity awards, so that they align the interests of the management team with our investors. The level of the awards that we make annually, or that the remuneration committee recommends and are therefore approved by the board, the level of those awards is determined with reference to both individual and company performance. I guess I would just finish by adding that I'm pretty proud of the team that we've put together. I believe it's of the highest caliber, and I would say it's central to the success we've achieved so far, and I hope that we will continue to enjoy that success. And moving on to the next question, which comes from Nigel B. What is the company's dividend policy, and when does the company think it will be in a position to issue dividends to shareholders? So our dividend policy remains the same, which is we're not in a position to be paying a dividend at this point. Our focus, as Adam explained shortly, is on growing Trident, building out the portfolio, growing our ongoing and sustainable cash levels. We have a firm intention to institute a dividend at the appropriate time. It's quite a moving feast, and it's difficult to be specific on what that level looks like. In the past, we have used a sort of a rule of thumb of around $10 million of revenue. I think that is certainly the point where we would start to be considering that whether a dividend was appropriate. But it is a fine balance between ensuring that we have sufficient capital in order to keep reinvesting in the business, keeping that growth going, because ultimately doing accretive transactions is what will keep Trident moving forwards, and seeing a similar share price performance and growth in the market capitalization that we've enjoyed over the last year or so. Adam, is there anything you would add to that?
Nope, I think that was comprehensive. Okay.
So we have a question here from Milan. Which is, can you provide an update on the debt facility? And I will pass that straight across to our CFO, Martin.
Thanks, James.
James, I think it'd be better. Martin, I think perhaps it'd be better. Just
bit of echo going on because we're in the same room for once. Thank you, James. Yeah, this refers to our ongoing negotiations with our debt partner, Tribeca. I think we've announced on a number of occasions over the last sort of 6+ months that we had a mandate with Tribeca for an up to $10 million facility. Post that could pass, we appreciate that we'd utilised a reasonable amount of our equity power at that point, and we are moving forward with negotiations with Tribeca on the debt facility without wanting to give too much, in terms of regulatory. What we're allowed to say, we're pretty far along the track with them. So we'll announce in due course when we reach the point that the negotiations are complete. So moving along, but obviously you'll want to have some money to some projects to spend the money on as well. So we I think.
Thank you, Martin. That looks like we have answered all the questions that have been submitted so far. Whilst that's been going on, we've completed the business of the meeting. So I have now completed poll cards for my own shares, and also for any shares in respect of which I have been appointed. These poll cards have been totaled. All resolutions have been duly passed, and we will be publishing the results on our website as soon as possible. That concludes the business of the meeting. May I thank you on behalf of the board for having joined proceedings, and also for your continued support.
Fantastic, James, Adam, Martin. Thank you very much indeed for updating attendees today. Could I please ask attendees not to close this session, as you'll be automatically redirected for the opportunity to provide your feedback in order that the management team can better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete and is greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of Trident Royalties PLC, we'd like to thank you for attending today's AGM proceedings. That concludes today's session.